Welcome to a special episode of Storyboard 18, where we explore how creativity, technology, and audiences shape the business of media and marketing. Today, we're speaking with Doug Aitken, the acclaimed multimedia artist whose work spans film, sculpture, immersive installations, and architectural interventions. His new exhibition, Under the Sun, at the Nita Mukesh Ambani Cultural Center marks his first ever show in India, a three-floor journey through the past, present, and future of how humans experience time, technology, and connection. This exhibition is curated by Triadic, and we have curators Roya, Sachs, and Mafalda Kahane with us too, as the group presents their third exhibition with NMACC, continuing their vision of creating immersive, cross-disciplinary art experiences. As an artist, Doug has examined hyperconnectivity, audience behavior, and the emotional impact of technology, themes at the heart of modern marketing. Let's dive into how art, attention, and experience intersect right here on Storyboard 18. Hello and welcome to the studio, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you.
And Doug, I'm gonna start, with you and just tell me more about what your expectations were, perhaps, getting into this exhibition in India, given your past experiences as well in the country. What were your expectations getting in, and tell us a little bit about what we can expect from this latest exhibition.
Yeah, I think Under the Sun is a very interpretive exhibition. It's a number of different mediums, from film to sculpture to tapestries, and it's an exhibition that we want to really empower the viewer to kind of author their own story and kind of fall into. It uses 3 floors of the exhibition space, and it creates kind of a journey.
Get into that a little bit more, especially when, we are, of course, in this age of, shorter attention spans and this absolute abundance of technology, which is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Give me a little bit more of an insight into, what is that one-line brief that you had, perhaps, in your mind for this vision?
Well, I think we're living in an unprecedented moment in human history. We've never encountered anything like the modern landscape. And change is so rapid. Mm-hmm. And I want to really work on a body of artworks that explore that kind of provoke questions, that kind of give an idea of that horizon in front of us and what we could be achieving, where we could be moving towards. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Which is a question mark and a big one for a lot of people. But let me get to you, Roya and Mafalda, and tell me a little bit about. So this is your third exhibition. What were some of the insights into the India market and its audience that perhaps informed, the artists that you work with, the work that you expose Indian artists to? Maybe I'll come to you first. Can you tell me a little bit about the thought process there for you?
Yes, I think for us, what is so exciting about working in India, and also, what the center and the Ambanis are really pushing forward, is this idea of bridging cultures and conversations. And so, as curators, and I think also as an artist, you always want to be trying to push some type of boundary. You want to give access to new audiences. You want to start a new type of dialogue. So I think what was super inspiring was this idea of how can we create this East meets West. Mm-hmm. And, India is so rich in terms of its artistry and its craft. And, everywhere you look, it's that is the art of what India is. It's the smells, it's the architecture. And what's interesting here with Doug is he really took that narrative into consideration, but he brought in his own, vision, mm-hmm. and combined that with the Indian story of art. And I think what comes out of that is something truly unique, quite spectacular, fully enveloping, and also hopefully will leave you, feeling something new.
Mm-hmm. And asking yourself those questions that Doug was talking about, right? Mafalda, what was your idea of the Indian history and sort of a culture of art? And a place for artists before you started, of course, working in the country, and over the exhibitions that you've presented here. How has that idea of the Indian market and art scene in a sense changed?
I think we always came in, or we generally approach a project in a way that we want to take down the barriers when it comes to the experience of art. So with every show that we have produced at the NMACC here in Mumbai so far, each artist was very different, each show was very different. They were all fairly experimental, but our goal was really to make it accessible and inviting and universal. So whilst this show is deeply rooted in Indian culture and history, I think the experience is incredibly universal and it picks everyone up, those who are at home in the art world and those who are not. And I think that was something that Doug really accomplished incredibly well without imposing himself in any way or assuming to understand Indian history any more than he did through his work.
That's a very interesting thing, and we were talking about this earlier as well, right? Accessibility, because for so long art has, historically as well, been something accessible to a certain class of audiences, a certain section of people. Doug, as an artist, over the decades that you've worked in many markets around the world, how has that definition of accessibility and that availability changed over the years, keeping in mind also the technology aspect, right? People are exposed to so much more today. They have entertainment and all kind of experiences coming at them at warp speed.
I think to talk about that is to really talk about the value of art itself. Like, why do we need art? And why do we need culture? And I think in many ways, culture allows us to have no ceiling, to have an open sky. And without that, our lives are so much determined on survival. You know, the day-to-day, the work, the things you do to get by. And I think without culture, we don't come into ourselves, our greatest potential. And it allows us a space for ambiguity, for abstraction, to have visions and dreams, to agree and disagree, to have a dialogue. And that energy and that friction is so important for all of us. And I think that's the universality of art. It's not about whether you like this or not, or whether you feel, you know, included or excluded. It's about when you come in contact with something and it has such an effect on you that it resonates, it stays with you, it haunts you. And I think in that way, great music, great art, architecture, film, it can stay with you and it can change you and it can help you to grow, almost like a step moving forward.
Absolutely. I love that, what you said. It stays with you. And I don't think there's only a prescribed way of experiencing any kind of art. But just coming back to the, I'm trying to sort of draw some parallels here and help our audiences understand how artists do it. When in this sort of competition and race for attention, Doug, if you could perhaps, what do artists understand about capturing attention?
Yeah. Well,
that maybe, marketers or brands or businesses all attempting to do the same thing today can maybe draw on?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic question you're asking. And I think we're living in a landscape of acceleration where information is moving faster and faster. Images, dispatches, words are pulses of electricity. They speed by, and it's hard for us to catch things and absorb them. And I think that's one of the values of art, is art is a space where you can slow down and decelerate and really kind of reflect on something and spend time. And that's a rarer and rarer commodity in our society when you think about it.
100%. Roya, you were talking earlier about experiences, and it's almost like it's a big buzzword today, right? Creating these experiences. How do you see audiences today respond to exhibitions like this, for instance? Are you perhaps reevaluating how exhibitions are today versus they were yesterday? In this, abundance of technology, other experiences, you're all competing for that same limited amount of attention. Has that made you rethink how you design these experiences? I don't know if you like calling it experience or an exhibition, but
well, for the lack of a better word. Listen, I think it would be ignorant for us, working in the creative world, not to take that conversation into consideration. Of course, we're living in the age of social media, of instant gratification of, getting anything at your doorstep in under 20 minutes, right? And if you don't,
10 minutes
then
here.
it's too
10
slow.
minutes here.
Exactly. And if you don't, if your Uber's 8 minutes too long, you're like, I'm going to cancel it. I think that, that's an important shift. But I think because of that, and because, the younger generations, and, I'm a culprit of that too, you get sucked in so easily, there is more of a demand to actually also disconnect and create physical spaces where people and communities can come together. And I think the one thing that social media technology lacks is this sense of community and people actually coming together and having a social space where you can engage, where you can feel open, where you can start a conversation with someone, which, oftentimes, as we know, social media really segregates and isolates. So I think in that sense, it's important for us to take that into consideration. And I think when we say experience, art is experiential. Art is an action, and what do you do to an action? You react to it. So I think the worst thing that could happen to us is people look at something that, we're trying to create and there's no reaction at all, right? We want to create that emotional resonance.
It's about feeling. It's about feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be. Mafalda, would you like to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think you said that really well, Roya. I think in a way we, scroll through things and see a show online and sort of take ownership over the experience and assume that we understand what it was all about because we just do it so quickly. We feel feelings and don't quite remember what we were feeling and why. And I think as such, collective experiences, as you call them, have become really an organized spectacle where once it was sort of a natural part of who we were as people. So I think it's something very important for us to really engage in more, to really reconnect as a society.
Absolutely. Speaking, I'm going to stay on technology for a bit as it's a key theme in your work as well, Doug. There's been, of course, this raging debate about artificial intelligence and, the democratization of those tools and the technology has really upended a lot of industries. Creative industries have not been spared either. What are the conversations that you have on a day-to-day basis about AI and technology and what it's done to creativity?
Well, I think, AI is kind of the overwhelming conversation of today. But I think simultaneously, more and more, I find people who are really interested in a return to the real and who want to seek out more organic experiences, nature, natural systems, And I find it really interesting that you, as a counterpoint to this kind of move into a synthetic world, into built environments, we're also finding like a huge movement in America. For example, where I live, people want to reconnect with natural systems. And, I think it says a lot about human nature, that we don't want to be mediated, that we don't want every aperture of the world around us to be synthetic and synthesized. So, yeah.
But how do you feel about artists using tools, or writers using AI? This has nothing to do with other people, but you as an artist, how do you feel about that?
I think technology has always been part of the growth of art, from the invention of the perspective, and we see paints that have more vivid color, like acrylic paints. These simple things like that now seem to us like absolutely nothing, were huge revelations at a period of time. And I think that now for me, it's much more about how can you use technology, not technology uses you.
Have there been cases where you felt that a technology has used an artist?
I think it's very seductive. I think it's very seductive to use different digital tools and to kind of let them take you somewhere. And we're kind of living in this space right now. It's very much a gray area creatively. A paper can be written and it can be finished by AI. It's something you could read, but maybe if you've read enough papers, you can spot which ones have that imprint or that style to it. So this is a completely new space that we're occupying. And I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error, success and failure. But I am like very confident in human creativity. And I think one of the things about creativity that's so special is the pursuit of something, the pursuit of an idea to a point where it can fail and collapse. And you can take the debris of that and create something even more new. And you know, that's one of the things that one of the patterns I find over and over with musicians or artists I know is that sense of wanting to take something so far it breaks. And in a sense, AI is only really using what exists already. So it can modify and make variations of what's here already, but it can't maybe do that. So
Get to on that journey.
yeah, the journey.
Absolutely. How do you feel about that, Mafalda? How do you feel about AI overuse or relying too much on technology as curators? You know, the conversations that you have with artists from all over the world. How do you feel about that? And what are you hearing back from artists like Doug?
I mean, I think that, you know, as Doug said, artificial intelligence is a tool, right? And it's all about how you use it. I think that there's this, you know, great grand fear of like, you know, AI is going to take over the world. You know, everyone thought, you know, painting was going to die when photography was invented. And, you know, here we are. Painting is still more relevant than ever, and photography and painting have both reinvented themselves. So I think the power of artists, of people like Doug, is they have the power to shift how we use those and turn that into something good, turn that into
empowering,
art, which is for the people, and it's empowering. And I think, you know, we nowadays get very bogged down in the negativity and the fear of AI, but I think in many ways it's also, you know, it's doing what Joseph Beuys always said, which is everyone can be an artist, right? He's giving everybody a paintbrush, which is kind of incredible, and the noise will kind of flush out the masses.
Well, I think on that noise, on that point, I think at the end of the day, as Doug already mentioned, the outcome is only ever as good as the prompt by the human that puts it in. And whatever sort of is created by the AI machine that you're using is sort of the collective voice of the different prompts that were inserted. So, you know, whether it is a mid-journey that you're using to create some visual, that visual will reflect what the mass is typing in at that moment. So it'll ever only be pushed if we as individuals really push the boundaries there.
It's also true that we're going to see other art forms, other mediums surface.
Something entirely new.
Yeah, and I think it might be, you know, that 14-year-old kid who's writing the most elegant code for something that we see in 30 years from now as like Glenn Gould playing Bach. You know, we don't really know, and I think it is very interesting that kind of as our human journey progresses, we also see the creation of new mediums continuously. You know, from the Industrial Revolution, you know, we find music with repetition, you know, and now we listen to techno music and it's nothing.
The evolution. We've seen this explosion of collaborations between brands and artists, whether it is to create an experience, a product, or, you know, a brand, whatever it may be. But we're seeing more and more of these collaborations happening. Doug, let me come to you with this first. How do you feel about that? What have been your experiences perhaps in the past? And how do you get to a point where you make it feel authentic? You know, I mean, as an artist, of course, you have to earn, and brand collaborations for many are a way to do that. How do you feel about keeping it authentic?
Well, I think the current situation of culture with contemporary art, I think it's a very difficult time for museums to survive. And museums struggle. They try to make shows and exhibitions that are not compromising. And oftentimes you see brands help support museums or help commission new works that don't exist. And I think it's a very delicate space, and it can be very successful when the system is buoyed and supported by, you know, a great brand that has the taste enough to be low key and to detach themselves a bit. I think when things become a hybrid of advertising and art, it becomes completely boring. Yeah.
Stay on the part about the hybrid of advertising and art. As an artist, how have you felt about that? There have been a lot of iconic artists that have produced work that is still recreated today as part of pop culture and advertising. How have you always felt about this intersection of art and advertising?
I mean, I think it's a kind of a natural space, that crossover. And it's just one of these things where, like, sometimes it's done incredibly well, you know, and there's something new that comes out of it. And I think when things are just commercialized, it's a little bit like, imagine a huge, beautiful boat going through the ocean, and gradually has more and more barnacles and parasites attaching themselves to it. And that's not really so beautiful anymore.
Not at all.
There's two sides to the sword, because I also think that, you know, I've seen many collaborations that have, you know, been done really beautifully and in a very authentic and original way, which I think, you know, was used as a tool to also democratize art that it sometimes wasn't accessible, or, you know, not many people can afford a Jeff Koons, but if you can have, you know, a very cool merch with a Jeff Koons on it, that's your version of owning a Jeff Koons. In that sense, I empower that, because I think it's, you know, it's advertising the art world in the right kind of way, because I think it can be done well. But obviously there's always that fine line of going into the kind of mass production and losing sight of why you did it in the first place. But, you know, when I see, you know, someone who's 16 years old wearing a hoodie with an artist phrase that I love on it, I think that's cool. I think that's great. And I think it's great that the youth are still interested in that.
Absolutely. We can get on board with that. Doug, I want to close with, you know, just your thoughts on what, going back to my first questions to you about the exhibition in India, you know, working with local artists, local teams. How has that experience been for you? What has inspired you from this experience? And eventually, what do you hope the audiences will take away?
Yeah, when I first came here to see the exhibition space 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about it. It was a completely new museum, a completely new space, and I thought that, you know, Indian culture for me is so vibrant, it's so rich, it has so much depth and dynamic, and I felt like it would be so superficial for me to come and just make something I could make, you know, anywhere. Where I live, make something that I could show anywhere. So I really felt like there was this kind of a possibility, a potential to create a bridge and to use the artworks to create that bridge. And, you know, so in the end of the day, a number of the works are collaborations with different artisans and craftspeople throughout India. And that's been a very incredible personal experience, kind of a journey where suddenly we have these dialogues every week about how we're making something and where it's going, what's the meaning and the depth of it. And for that, I've been incredibly grateful for this exhibition. And I think it's unusual. I think the works they're kind of these really fascinating hybrids. There's kind of technology involved in some of the creation of the works, and hand embroidery or hand wood carving. And the exhibition, you know, it is kind of a journey. You kind of go from this very analog, natural, physical world, and you kind of ascend. The second floor is a work called New Era, which is the story of a man who invented the first cell phone in history. And then he picked up the phone and made the first call in history. So it's kind of this piece which is almost like a new chapter in all of our lives. It doesn't matter where you live. We're all kind of connected in some way. And the third floor of the exhibition is something very abstract. It's this kind of large light sculpture, light and sound. It's immersive. You kind of fall into it. And so I think it's really, you know, the exhibition is an offering. It's kind of a gift. It's kind of, we took this table and we made a dinner, and now we're opening the doors.
To everyone.
Please come dine with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
For those who dare to create, here's to the ideas that broke the internet, the campaigns that own the conversation, the reels that travel faster than fire, and the stories we couldn't stop watching. To the creators, the makers, the dreamers, the doers, this one's for you. Introducing Storyboard 18 Awards for Creativity, the celebration of the work that shaped the year, the minds that shaped the work. Brand films, digital stunts, AI, gaming, influencer collabs, design, craft, culture, and disruption. If you push the boundaries, if you made India think, feel, laugh, or act, it's time to step into the spotlight. Entries are now open. The deadline is January 15, 2026. The bold, the brave, the breakthrough. See you at the Storyboard 18 Awards for Creativity. The stage is yours.